couple slices of pizza left.
All right, so back at it. We are talking about something, and I was trying to decide where I wanted to go with all this. Let's see. Oh yeah, number 2. Okay, so we were going to really bring this and tie this right back into what we already learned using the Hamilton standard. So I'll just keep with my notes here, just because I can. Every time I go off notes for too far, I kind of forget to say stuff. Then you have something on the test. I'm like, oh wait, let's skip that. So Hamilton standard. That's actually the name of it. Hamilton standard. Counterweighted.
Are you sharing your screen?
No. Did you want me to?
No, I don't have to.
I'm saying it. You just guess. No, I had to turn off my screen share.
You just want to show us your HD camera.
I did, yes. So you can just look at me the whole time. So. Yeah, and I figured out what happens. Now, yeah, there was some sort of upgrade. And now when I share a screen, it changes all my settings. So there's weirdness. So I don't like it. So Hamilton standard, counterweighted prop. That's what we're going to talk about again. And so before we talked about the 2 position, but now we're talking about the counterweighted constant speed prop and not the 2 position. So before I said Hamilton standard 2 position, now I'm just saying Hamilton standard counterweighted prop. So prop design. Let me see, this page. So it's basically the same. So prop design is basically the same. Basically the same as the 2 position, but with the following. It has a different blade angle range. And it uses a large spring in the piston to aid centrifugal action. Okay, so just like we already learned, because it has counterweights. Oh, and I changed PowerPoints now for this new week, and let me see, slideshow, current slide. Hey, and I have different pictures now. So this is a different angle of the Hamilton standard propeller, and now you can see what I was talking about the shininess right in here. And you don't want that to get corroded. So this is in the low pitch position because the piston's moved all the way forward. And if you move it back, it will cover that in the high pitch. So low pitch and then high pitch back. So we have to look at this and say, which way are the counterweights now? So they are this way, they can move backwards. Do they want to be here or they want to be back there? Well, they want to be back here. So keep that in mind. So,
well, don't they move opposite of each other?
One goes up and one goes down in that position.
Yeah.
But they both move, I don't want to say inboard or outboard. They kind of move inboard, really. 2, counterweights, which is my point I was going to make. Counterweights. Move my pad so I can write nicer. Counterweights. Counterweights drive the prop. Drive the prop to high pitch position. And that means that the opposite of that then is engine oil drives prop to low pitch. All right, governor. I was just going to skip this, as I said, but so I thought, well, we just talked about it. But then I looked at what I wrote and I'm like, ooh, no, there's actually some good points here. So the governor is similar, or it's so similar, it's the same, is similar to what? I had to sneeze there, you know, the virus and whatnot. Governor is similar to what we talked about last week, to what we just talked about. So, but because this is going to be operated off of a round engine, this particular one, a radial engine, the connection's just a little bit different than normal. So it has a control pulley on the side connected to the cockpit control. It has a control pulley on the side connected, CONNECT, connected to cockpit control, And one of the things that I'm going to have you do when you're actually in lab working on this is, you've got your basic governor. I'll just make that the basic governor. And then there's a drive pin that comes out of the side. So right here, if we look at this, I can't actually see, I hope you can see me. Right here, there's a pin that comes out of the side and you rotate that pin, and that is what the rack and pinion then puts pressure down on the speeder spring, which changes everything. So what gets connected is actually a rather large pulley on there. And on that pulley, you have cables that run through there. And the cable will be pinned so that it can't slip along here. And that cable will then go to another control, which has the control rod on it. I should make that blue because it's blue in the cockpit, so on the blue handle. Now, one of the things you're going to have to determine for me at some point when I have this, I will say, is this cable here, how is it attached? In other words, you have to tell me if the handle, which way the handle is facing, so we can condense all of this when we're just working with the governor itself. So you're just going to have a governor with this big round pulley on it. You're going to have that. And I'm going to say, which way is high RPM? Is it this way or is it this way? And you're going to have to know that. And in other words, how is it connected in the cockpit? And so it's something you'll be able to figure out by looking at it. And you're going to have to think that, okay, if I go this way, is that putting pressure on the speeder spring? Yes or no? And if yes, putting pressure on the speeder spring, does that mean it's telling the RPM to go higher or lower? Or is it this way that is pressing on the speeder spring? So you have to figure that out and tell me which way is handle forward, handle back. So in other words, let me think. So if, and we said earlier, and you guys can help me out with this one, if in fact, let me erase some of this so we can keep it straight. This top picture is true. Handle forward means that if it's forward is high RPM. That's high RPM. Oops, turn the pin on. High. And down here would be low RPM. Okay, if that's true, this is true here. And so if it's wired this way, then that means that if this little dot is right here, that would be high. And if that dot gets pulled back, this is low. Follow? So that would mean this is high and this is low. Okay, so if that's all true, then you have to figure out, okay, what is that doing to the speeder spring? And that's where things get a little difficult. And you have to think, okay, so if I pull it back to high, what is it doing with the speeder spring? Is that increasing it or decreasing it? So I pull it back to low, and you can do it this way. If I pull it back to low, that's telling the prop that I'm in an overspeed and it needs to slow down. So if I'm telling it it's in an overspeed, that must mean when I pulled it back here, it must momentarily at least tell the speeder springs or the flyweights that it's that. So that means less pressure, less speeder spring pressure, right? And up here would be more speeder spring press, if I got that all right. And so, and that's fine. If this is going forward, that is high RPM, more speeder spring and less. But what if it's the other way around? Because it really could be. And if it was really the other way around, and it really could be, then that means that the cables don't go like this. The cables actually come around and they cross and go that way. So it reverses the direction. And that's something you should be able to understand and see if you're going to work on aircraft, because this is how you got to rig them sometimes to make sure it's right. And so that means that things are backwards, and you're going to have to be able to tell me this. And if that's all confusing to you, then I'm very sorry about that. I didn't mean it to be, but just to say that at some point you're going to have to look at this disc and say, when I move it this way, is that increasing RPM or decreasing RPM? And you're going to have to do that. And once you have it in your hands and you have the ability to disassemble it, put it in your hands, look at the speeder spring and play with it, you're not going to have a problem with that. That I feel pretty confident with. So
That's going to go only one way, right? To go to high and low on the pulley on the governor side.
it goes both ways, goes right and left, goes clockwise, counterclockwise.
Yeah, but it will function only one way.
No, one way increases the speeder spring pressure, the other way decreases it. One way is
Yeah.
increase-
That's what I'm saying.
No. Yeah. One way increase, one way decrease. One way high pitch, one way is low pitch.
It just depends how it will be rigged, right?
Yep,
Or
how it's
it will
rigged.
be rigged.
Yep. That and yeah, but when you guys go to run your governor on the test stand, there's no indicators on it. You're just going to get this big pulley and you're going to put on there and say, well, which way's which? We can't talk about it functionally as a group, you and myself and another person, until we know which way's high RPM, which way's low RPM. So, but it's easy to do once you have it in your hand and you disassemble it, because you will, and you look at the speeder spring and you can label it and work your way out backwards, so that when you put it on the stand, you go, hey, we took it apart, we labeled it, this way's increased pressure, this way's decreased pressure. And then what that means. So, okay, so I got the governor talked about. Let's see. Let's see, one. Well, yeah, one. Okay, so this is two. 1, 2, 1, 2. Control pulley. Control pulley. And that's this pulley right here. Incorporates a stop screw, or a stop screw to set high RPM / low pitch. And that stop screw is right here. You can see it. And so that pulley that's going around, it actually has a little pin in there that's going to hit this right here. And that's how you know when to stop. What it knows to stop. You can't go any more than that. And that's, like I said, that's the high RPM, low pitch stop. And so what that's basically doing is it's setting this handle, so to speak, in the correct high pitch, or sorry, the high RPM stop, And you know that's correct when you go into the cockpit and you go wide open throttle with the handle in the high RPM position. It should go right to red line and not over. If it goes over, you need to adjust that little screw, which is the same as setting it so that this handle stops over here instead, a little bit further down. Well, of course, you can't really do that. Especially if you have a twin engine, your owner is going to go nuts on you, because now this handle doesn't match the other handle. So the handles always have to match. So you got to re-rig all the cables to make sure that the handles match, even when you change this out here. But that's a whole other thing. So, okay, so it's got that. This is, I think, one of the reasons I'm glad I circled back around to this, because it may the governor may include a balance spring. A balance spring above the speeder, above the speeder rack. That's the assembly above the speeder rack to set flyweights, to a cruise RPM in the middle of the road, if you will. So cruise RPM to cruise RPM if the control cable breaks. So if you have a breakage of this control cable, no more control of the governor, and the governor was in high RPM, it's going to rotate itself around to right in the middle between high and low, because there's a spring that balances out the whole thing in there and says, okay, let's just go middle of the road here. Now, if a speeder spring breaks, you're just screwed. So, all right. So, and this is going to tie in what we just talked about. As the prop control is moved forward, spring pressure is increased. That's speeder spring, that is. Spring pressure is increased. Okay, flyweights move to an underspeed condition. I'm going to abbreviate US because it's going to get really long if I don't. US, underspeed condition. Underspeed condition. And prop. Goes to a lower pitch. Prop goes to a lower pitch to increase engine RPM. All right, and then the same thing backwards. As the prop control is moved back, spring pressure is decreased. And flyweights move to an OS, overspeed condition. Overspeed condition. And let me see, then prop goes to a higher pitch to slow engine RPM. How you guys doing? Okay. Cool. Like the thumbs up. There we go. Thank you. The next part of my notes, it's very wordy and it repeats what we just did. I don't want to make you write a bunch of stuff, but you don't have to write it. But I don't know if it'd be easier if I just kind of went through it just step by step and say, okay, this is what's happening again. So let me see. Here we go. From current slide. So one of the things I noticed while I was talking to you, which I shouldn't be, is check out the bolts. What kind of bolts are those?
Are those Welch ones?
Yeah, look at it with that little cover right there on it. They look kind of funky. See that one a little funky over there? Yeah.
Do those just pop out if you need to change it, or do you have to like drill them out or something?
I've never had to take those out, so I don't really know. That is not something that I wish to ever partake in, balancing these props like that.
Okay.
I suppose if I had a prop balancer, I would, but I didn't, so I don't. Okay, where do I want to go with this here? I want a right picture here. That's not really the best picture. Let's try this one. Okay, so let's see here. Let me get the right thing. So let's kind of walk through it. So let's consider an aircraft that is in cruise flight and it's cruising along, and I should get the right picture. So cruising along. So we are cruising along and we're happy and we are in equilibrium. The fly weights are in this position and they're in equilibrium with the speeder control and everything is great. And the pilot says, you know what? I want higher RPM. I want to bring my RPM a little bit. And there's reasons why you do that, because when you do fly these airplanes, you have a chart that shows you the manifold pressure you want versus the RPM you want. And a lot of the older, I won't say old timers, because you know the older I get, the closer I'm getting to being an old timer, is they would say you fly square. And what that would mean is because you can control RPM and manifold pressure independently, you would fly around at, and I really should be careful with old timers because I'm about to ask Harry a question, and he's not an old timer. And if this falls under this category, he would think I'd call him an old timer, but he's not. So they would say fly square. So what that would be is if you're going to fly at 2,500 RPM and you'd set your RPM with the blue knob, you should fly at 25 inches of manifold. And so the same thing, if you're gonna fly 2,600 RPM, you'd fly at 26 inches and so on and so forth. So that's what they meant by flying it squared. Harry, are you available to share with us, like where you prefer, what is your pilot, your POH or preference for cruise flight?
It's usually 20 inches and 2,200 RPM.
So you're going 20 inches at 2,200?
Yep.
Okay. So there we go. It's the 182. So you have this chart that tells you what to do. And so, you know, let's say we're flying along for some reason, we realized, ooh, we're a little low on our engine RPM. I wasn't paying attention, didn't set it right. So we had to increase this engine RPM. So, well, right now we're in theory, we're flying along and it's in equilibrium. So we've got to increase the engine RPM. So to increase the engine RPM, we are going to reach up to the blue knob and we are going to move it forward a little bit. So it's going to have to come forward just a little bit to increase the RPM, because forward is always increase RPM. This is going to rotate the pulley, this is a little bit different, and which moves the speeder rack down a little bit and puts more pressure, because we said that earlier. So we said, I got to keep this straight. So we're going to put a little bit more pressure, right? Hopefully I'm just saying it right. A little more pressure on. And if we do a little more pressure on, we're going to not go to that picture. We're going to go, there we go. We're going to put a little more pressure on the speeder rack. And so what's going to happen is it's going to push this down and it's going to force these to come in. And it's going to say, hey, we are in an underspeed condition. And all the governor knows at this point is fly weights are in, flyweights are in, so it dropped down the pilot valve. If it dropped down the pilot valve, that means we've got to fix this. And so with this particular prop, the governor oil pressure is now sent to the prop, which overcomes the centrifugal force of those counterweights, and moves the prop to a lower blade angle. Because remember, the counterweights are saying higher blade. So a little more oil goes to a lower blade angle. Now, as soon as that blade starts to flatten out a little bit, the engine RPM is going to pick up, and guess what it's going to do? Boom, go back into equilibrium, because that's what it's supposed to do. And now it balances that because the flyweights are spinning faster, they have a little bit more centrifugal force that can overcome that little bit more of a spring pressure. So, hey, great. So there we are. Now, in theory, we have leak off from the bearings and stuff. I explained to you that, the transfer collars. So you're gonna have some leak off, and in a perfect world, you wouldn't, but it's gonna leak. And so the propeller is gonna start to go to a higher RPM in this case, because a higher pitch angle because of the counterweights, which is gonna slow it down. It's gonna slow it down a little bit. And then they're going to come in a little bit. So then it's gonna add a little more oil pressure. And then it's gonna, sorry about that, go back. And so it's gonna go back and forth, back and forth. So now what if we're flying along and we say, oh, you know what? I was just reading my AOPA magazine while I was flying, because I have a nice airplane like Juan does, and it's got an autopilot on it. And I woke up from my nap and realized that I want to change my RPM. And I want the RPM to be lower. Okay, well, now I'm just going to do the opposite. So RPM to go lower. So that means that I've got to bring this back a little bit. And so when I bring back a little bit, I am going to then decrease the spring pressure. When I decrease the spring pressure, it should be 2 clicks away. There we go. Decrease spring pressure. Flyweights are going to say, whoa, we are spinning too fast. And that is going to lift up the pilot valve. And then in this case, it is going to drain off the oil and let centrifugal twisting motion of the counterweights win the war and take this thing to a higher blade angle and slow the engine down. So that is what's going to happen. Oh, hopefully I didn't damage you on that one.
So I know the flyweights are connected to the crankshaft or just the engine rotation somehow.
Huh?
How are they connected in this case? Like, where are the flyweights connected to?
Where are they really? Whoa, now why did you just do that? There we go. Okay, so let's see if I can do this up in the air. So where it really is this end, the drive end, is actually attached to the gears in the engine. So the gears in the engine are rotating. Let me see if I got something in here. What do I got in my desk drawer? A ruler. This whole thing's kind of crusted, kind of. So when this drives, it spins that cup.
Okay.
So this cup spins around, and that spins the flyweights around, which is directly connected to that end down there. So these things are spinning around like that. can you see all that?
I do see all that.
Okay, so that's what's happening. It's the cup. So now this is a horrible picture right there, because it really, even I'm looking at it going, oh, I can just use that. And I'm like, no, I can't, because it all looks like it's solid. It's like everything is connected to everything. But let me see if I can pull up a nice picture. There we go. Yeah.
They always go to normal, or?
Does it always go to normal? Yeah, it always wants to go to equilibrium for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of it. Be in equilibrium.
Yeah, but you can, like, let's say you decided to climb, then
okay,
it will keep putting more pressure, right?
Well, I love that question. So here we are flying along in equilibrium, and I'm going to climb. And I'm not going to touch anything but the yoke. I'm just going to grab the yoke and pull straight back. Well, I grab the yoke and go straight back. The airplane starts going up, and like any airplane will do, it'll start slowing down. The engine will slow down because I'm going up. So because the engine's just started to slow down, the spring one pushed the flyweights in, dropped the pilot valve, and said, hey, we're in an underspeed condition. So what that's going to do is it's going to change the pitch of the propeller. It's going to flatten out. In this case, that means it's oil pressure. So it's going to send oil pressure to the propeller flatten it out and speed the RPM right back up. So the pitch is always going to go all over the place, but the RPM gauge stays nailed.
Do you see any drop in RPM when you do that?
No, shouldn't.
So it's basically right now instant.
It's pretty fast. Harry, what do you say on that one?
Yeah, I don't see any change at all. It's pretty amazing how nice it works, where it keeps that the RPMs constant, whether you're climbing or descending or cruising.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, so we got all that. Let's do this one. So I kind of skipped some stuff. So what was I at? Everything I just said was under C. So I'll try and make this C now and try and remember. Then the next one's going to be off. The next one's going to be off. And now you'll know why. So, all right, setup and adjustment. Setup and adjustment. All right. A couple of interesting points in here. Well, okay, so the prop install, it's the same way. Prop doesn't change. It's the same way. But let's talk about the governor install. And why did I choose to put it here? I don't know. All right, you had better never disappoint me on this. Direction of governor rotation is, you should be finishing my sentence, when viewed.
From drive end?
Thank you. I was hoping somebody was there.
From above the plane?
From the drive end. If you say from the pilot's perspective, we'll have to, as a class, come up with some sort of like, bad thing. I can't do that. I don't know. You have to buy everybody donuts the next day or something like that. And viewed from the drive end. All right, make sure, well, you can't really do this. I'm going to write it, but you can't really make sure governor is set up correctly. Governor is set up correctly. And whoever does remember, you can't take apart governors. It's a major alteration, or it's repair. Make sure governor is set up for correct. For correct, governor is set up. Let me change my word. Set up for correct rotation. I put and rotates freely. I'm gonna leave that at 1. Okay, so let me see if you can see him on this one. If you were to look at that, I don't know. Oh, there we go. I can see there's an A hole and a B hole. We have to consider your A hole and your B hole, because your A hole and your B hole are which way it goes. Now, I don't know why, but the book does it backwards from what I'm going to say, and it messes up my head. So to me, I'm going to tell you the way I like it. So if your A hole is open, that equals a clockwise direction. Because to me, clockwise is the first thing and A is the first thing. So A and clockwise make sense together. So anyway, so we got your A hole there. So your A hole is open, then that is clockwise. Now, if the B hole is open, that of course is counterclockwise. Counterclockwise. The way the book says it, it goes the other way. If the plug is in the B hole, then it is clockwise. And if the plug is in the A hole, then it's counterclockwise. And they cross them, and I don't like that. So I just say, yeah, you just gotta know if your A hole is open or not. Yeah.
Can you show us A and B, the holes?
Oh, you want to see my A hole?
Yeah.
Don't forget the B hole.
Right there. So that's one set. One set is there. The other set is inside. Oh, can't open it. Sorry. The other set's inside. Let me see if I have a picture. I don't know where my wrench went. I had a wrench in here for prying this apart. And you guys are going to be happy when this class is over, but you know who's really going to be happy is Zeus, the poor guy. He just sits outside my door waiting for me.
Is he waiting for a walk?
Yeah, I take him outside and I play at the laser pointer. Yeah, I don't have a picture of it really showing the A and the B hole.
Just Google it.
I'm not,
Take it out.
I'm not Googling a hole. That's how I lose my job, right
It
there.
was worth the shot.
Don't worry, Julian's on it.
All right, I got it apart. There you go.
You did it for your students.
Let me see. I can't see what you're saying now. There we go. Back to here. Boom. There's the plug. So that one is, which one is plugged? I can't see. You guys are supposed to tell me. It's not labeled. Usually they're labeled right there where you can see it. Let me see. Is that the other side? There, oh, what the hell? That's not even supposed to be there. There we go. B. I was wondering why there wasn't one down here. It's right there. So that is the B hole on this one. So B there and this one and B there. So you got the two B's. So therefore it is, which direction? B hole's open. A hole's open. So A hole is open. So that is your
Clockwise.
clockwise. Okay.
I found an a-hole.
All right. Okay, so that's something you're going to really need to do when you're installing one. Just makes good sense to kind of look at that. So make sure, okay, B, now B, install governor, gasket with the raised screen toward the governor. And so this is the actual mounting pad, and you can see that there's this recessed area. The screen goes up inside there. When you look at the where it mounts on the engine, there is no screen there. So let me see. I know I got a picture. Wrong one. Let's pull up the other week. This one. There we go. So there's the screen, and I don't have a side version of it, but this screen right here is actually popped out. It's not flush. So if you looked at a profile version of it, it would have this little raised lip there. And so that screen is raised and the screen goes inside of here, not against the flat surface of the crankcase. In this case, it's a light coming with an accessory case on it. So the raised side goes out. So raised side out, let me see. Oh, this is just worth repeating, but I've said it before. Rig, control properly. Under most circumstances, most modern aircraft, it's just a push-pull rod. So it's not like you're going to get it backwards and accidentally like have the high is low and low is high. But you have to make sure you have full range of motion. when you do that, make sure that the governor goes all the way from its full range, all the way to its full range at the governor, which means that you have to have cushion. And I talked about cushion in the cockpit. So proper cockpit cushion is, I'd say 1/8 inch minimum. And what that means, remember that you hit the stop on the component and still have at least 1/8 inch to go on the lever inside the cockpit. And then you adjust the RPM. Adjust RPM. Now I'll tell you, some props you're able to adjust the RPM at the prop. Most of the time you adjust it out of the governor. So operate engine at max throttle. Max throttle. Don't go over the red line. I should write that. Do not exceed red line. Because there's sometimes if you have the governor set incorrectly and it's too flat, then it will go over red line. So don't go out there and run it up, well, how'd it go? Well, it was only like 300 or 400 RPM over red line. Well, how long did you run it for? It's just a couple, 5 minutes like that, man. I'm telling you, boss, it was no big deal. Okay, don't do that. If you can make it up to red line, stop. And if you still have a lot of throttle left, evaluate. You may have a problem there. So if it does go past, red line, or it seems to want to, then you have to adjust the governor. So you just adjust the stop, adjust stop pin, and screw to achieve proper RPM. Make sure you follow the manual on that one. All right, this would be, let me see, D. Troubleshooting. Well, let's see how well you are at understanding this propeller combination. How about prop shifts to high blade angle? High blade angle, but does not respond, to cockpit input to low angle.
Bad speed or spring?
Well, let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons I came up with. Damn, broken speeder spring. Broken speeder. Why broken speeder spring? Because the flyweight said, hey, we are in an overspeed condition, and it shifts to high blade angle all the way high, trying to slow the engine down. But no matter how high it goes, it will slow the engine down, but the governor doesn't know it. Governor thinks it, well, doesn't work. So it's just stuck there at this high blade angle, low RPM. What else we got, guys?
Clogged relief valve.
A what?
Clogged relief valve.
Wow. That might be it. I got to think about that one. Yeah.
That block it. Yeah.
Would it be open or closed?
Closed, right?
Now I got to put a 5 on here. Well, you got to tell me.
Closed.
So if it's closed, well, let me think. If you had a relief valve that plugged to the closed position, it would probably shear the shaft off right down here because it would hydraulic lock the whole governor. So you'd shear it, you wouldn't have a governor left. So therefore, if you had no governor left, counterweights would take over, and counterweights would take this one to a high blade angle. So that's a good job there. So plug relief. plug relief leading to loss of governor. I like that one. What else we got?
Bad internal oil seals.
Yeah, we can do that. You guys are doing good. Bad oil leakage. Okay. Actually, I've already got this one. So loss of governor, so we could have a broken drive shaft. Highly unlikely, but I'm sorry, this is actually like or maybe a broken control cable. Probably the most likely right there is broken control cable. So, all right, got some good stuff. How about in the few minutes I have left here, sluggish or erratic prop operation?
Cold oil inside the governor.
Hang on, erratic prop operation. What do you got?
Cold oil in the governor
Not in the governor.
or in the cylinder.
Okay. Cold oil in prop. All right, that's good. What else we got?
Leakage again?
Leakage is good. That's really good. Okay, what else? I got one in mind that I've said before.
The speeder train.
It's still working. It's just really sluggish or erratic. So what happens is a pilot says, you know, like I pull back on the stick and boy, the RPM goes way down before it starts coming back up again. So the prop is really slow to respond to these changes.
There's slack in the cable, maybe.
No, not necessarily. I like that though, but it's going to be in kind of an, you know what? I could go for that because not under what I just said, but it's kind of going all over the place, erratic, high and low and high and low. Yeah, maybe a little spring is going back. So I've never seen that one, but that could definitely be it. I was thinking this one, and I told you before, sludge. Sludge buildup in prop shaft.
The other thing I was thinking is the internal pump is going bad.
Yep, that could be it too. We could accredit that to leakage. Wore out there. I don't know if I've got it in my notes, but since I've only got 2 minutes left, I'm just going to tell you about it. One of the really cool tests that I have done and is to determine what kind of leakage you have here. We took a plate and we made a plate that covered all of this, like an aluminum plate, and we drilled a hole in it and put an air fitting right here and used a differential compression tester gauge and put, you know, so we got our differential gauge with the 2 gauges. And we put, I don't know, you know, 80 PSI in one, and then this should be about 70 to 80 PSI because those are pretty small passages. But if it's really leaking, it means everything past here has got some big wide open holes. And so it tells you the integrity of this. We're just looking at that. That's a black fitting. That's good. This looks almost like hardware store fitting, if you ask me. What the heck's going on there? But anyway, so that was one of the things. I may have that somewhere else, but all right, so cool. So we're in a really good position here. We've made it past the Hartzell, and now tomorrow we'll talk about pretty much the rest of the day. We're just going to bring in and talk about some of these other props and what we've already learned and just apply it to that, how the modern props are working on here, so that by Wednesday, Harry can overhaul his propeller if he wants to.
Yay.
All right, well, you guys have a good evening.
You too. Thanks for all the knowledge, Kevin.
All right, first guy, thank you.
Thanks very much.